In March 2026, the UN hosted a reparations hearing projecting the image of a global breakthrough. On the surface, the event featured the most recognizable faces of Black liberal politics, performing righteous indignation on a world stage. Behind the theater lies the documented reality of the debt: millions of Africans kidnapped and commodified to construct the economic bedrock of Western civilization. This wealth was built on centuries of forced labor that turned human beings into the capital that funded modern finance. This demand for justice was a pan-African human rights issue before becoming a political talking point. It originated in the grassroots, defined by sovereignty and international justice over domestic electoral needs. The foundation of this movement was laid by organizers like Queen Mother Moore and Marcus Garvey, leaders who treated the debt as a core requirement for African liberation, decades before it was safe or profitable to mention. Presenting these same establishment-loyal figures as the voice of a radical legacy creates a fundamental conflict of interest. These speakers remain tied to the very political structures responsible for managing the debt, ensuring the investigation into the crime is handled by the beneficiaries of the system. This international performance is the direct result of a domestic strategy perfected over decades. Since the mid-20th century, the Democratic Party has held uncontested, simultaneous control of the House, Senate, and the White House for significant stretches of time. During these windows of total power, the legislative output regarding reparations was zero. The party failed to pass a compensation bill, commission a formal study with teeth, or even issue a standardized apology for the state's role in the trade. This 60-year failure rate suggests the movement was intentionally placed into a political machine designed to contain the demand rather than deliver on it. The primary mechanism for this containment is a specific bill introduced in 1989, H.R. 40. The strategy behind this bill is found in its specific wording. It avoids acknowledging the debt or authorizing payment, focusing exclusively on a mandate to study the issue. This creates a 4-year cycle of mobilization. Every election season, leadership uses the bill to secure votes, treating this historical reckoning like a carrot. Once the election ends, the bill is returned to a drawer, leaving the status quo undisturbed for another cycle. This 35-year loop of studying a 400-year-old crime has successfully converted a revolutionary demand into a permanent campaign asset. To maintain this cycle, the establishment utilizes managers, figures like Al Sharpton, who bridge the gap between party leadership and the community. Their access to the halls of power often exceeds their connection to the people they represent. These operatives provide the appearance of progress, keeping political energy focused within the party tent, while the actual goalposts remain stationary. Their role is to ensure that authentic anger remains manageable. They keep the demand for reparations theoretical, preventing it from ever hardening into a political ultimatum that could disrupt the system. The party fears such an ultimatum because comprehensive accountability would directly threaten the donor class that funds the entire political structure. By utilizing these gatekeepers, the establishment strips the movement of its momentum, turning a human rights liability into a reliable tool for fundraising. The ancestors of this movement, like Harriet Tubman, operated with an unyielding defiance that exists entirely outside the current political establishment. This tradition was carried by Frederick Douglass, who sharpened the demand for justice through methods that prioritized liberation over the comfort of the ruling class. The current political structure relies on the very economic marginalization that reparations are meant to dismantle. This makes the movement incompatible with the party's existing machinery. The Democratic Party prioritizes replacement over representation, shrinking a historical reckoning into a manageable hashtag. An authentic reparations movement is international. It connects the African world across borders to demand accountability from every nation and corporation that profited. The requirements are concrete: land, capital, the restoration of stolen cultural assets, and the dismantling of an economic architecture designed to ensure poverty. Realizing these goals requires the African world to build independent sovereign power, rather than outsourcing its liberation to those who benefit from the status quo. Success depends on bypassing these domestic political cycles and arriving on the world stage not as supplicants, but as a unified force presenting a global ultimatum the international community is forced to answer.